Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Train Tuesday. It's the last Train Tuesday of the year. 2020 is about to be a speck in the rearview mirror. And let's hope it stays that way. Let's hope for next year will be a much better year than what 2020 has been. And wait just a little bit and get some more folks to get on board here. Looks like we got Angela here. We got Wayne, Joel. Sorry, no nachos yet. One of these days, we're going to figure out virtual nachos. And I'll be happier and probably a little bit bigger. Kyle, welcome aboard. Eric, welcome aboard. Who else have we got out here? Chris, come on board. Nice to see you. All right. So, depending on where you're at today, hopefully it's not too cold. Kyle says he's got his popcorn ready. Man, I wish we had virtual popcorn and virtual nachos. Man, you guys are making me hungry. Mark, welcome aboard. Richard, Sean, Enrique. Hello, Nathaniel. Everybody, welcome aboard. Thanks for coming aboard today. We've got another busy day. A lot of stuff going on. Last night after yesterday's broadcast, I started getting some things out. You can kind of see behind me that pink landscape that's been behind us for about a month is going to be a layout. And hopefully once the holidays are behind us, we can start seeing that take shape and you guys can see what's going on there for the future. Since right now it doesn't look like we've got any shows planned right away. So that'll keep me out of trouble after hours, working on something other than N scale. So want to welcome everybody here today. We've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about the Genesis locomotives that we're unveiling for January. And let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the first one. Is the ST70M-2 locomotive. Now, we talked briefly about this yesterday, and I'm going to go ahead and make that bigger. All right, you guys can still hear me okay? I apologize. I have a little bit of a frog in my throat this afternoon. So once again, ST70M-2s. These are offered this time in Genesis 2.0. So you're going to have the see-through pilot steps, the marker lights, the ground lights, which is really cool, and of course lit number boards. Now keep in mind too that the lit number boards and especially the ground lights, it's very subtle. But if you're like some of the modelers now that have the really cool different light intensities on their layout, some guys that do prototype modeling, they will actually do almost like a 24-hour run so that the lights actually dim and get brighter depending on what time of day it is. In dim light, it doesn't have to be dark, but in dim light, those ground lights show up really well, and especially the number boards show up really well. So just a couple of things to think about. There's some neat things that Genesis 2.0 offers. The other thing, too, is the sound. The sound on these is just phenomenal. The dual sugar cube speakers really make these locomotives sound really nice. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go through the ST70M-2s. We're going to go over the road numbers real quick, or road names, and then I'll stop and see if you guys have any questions on that stuff. Yeah, James, ballast dust will make your voice scratchy. Fortunately, I don't think I've been into that. Maybe dust, but we'll talk about that later. So let me bring up what we've got going on here. So the first one, of course, is Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern, they had about 126 of these. And this is a locomotive that you would have seen from 2005 right on up. Now, I do realize that they don't use these as much. I believe Norfolk Southern sold a lot of these. But, again, depending on the era that you're modeling, if you're not, right today, here and now, and you're doing something in the mid-2000s, these are perfect for that. This has the PTC roof is included in the box, so you can add that to further authenticate the time period in which you're doing it in. And with all of our Genesis locomotives, they're offered without sound. So if you want to do your own thing, you can. They're also offered with a Tsunami 2 soundboard, and of course, those dual sugar cube speakers. So Norfolk Southern, very business looking, corporate looking paint scheme, but still a nice, attractive paint scheme. When these are clean, they just look really nice. So up next is the Florida East Coast. I don't believe we offered this in the last run. This is the Rail America paint scheme. It was a very short-lived paint scheme. If you were here yesterday, Janet talked about that briefly. Florida East Coast got these, and they didn't have them for very long, especially in this paint scheme, and they moved on. We've got 3 road numbers here, 105 all the way to 107, and these would be appropriate for about 2008 or so. Again, they weren't really around too long. But there are some folks that have asked for these specific units, and like everything in Athens, we do listen. Sometimes it takes us a while to catch up with the demand, but if we get enough requests for something, we will do it. So we're kind of going on the east side of the country now, the Vermont Rail. As I said yesterday, if you wanted to replicate the full roster of the Vermont Rail ST70M-2s, here's your opportunity. 431 and 432. These arrived on the scene about 2007. I remember when they were in their previous owner's paint scheme, and they just had the Vermont Rail mountain logo applied to the long hood. It didn't take too long, though, for them to paint them in their really attractive corporate red paint scheme, which is stands out really nice in all that green that Vermont's known for. We have heard some comments online that, yes, there are 2 different shades of red on this. Janik is aware of that, and we're always going to try to go to the sources to get the correct information for you, because we know you guys notice that stuff. Moving along a little bit down the road is the Providence and Worcester, and kind of cool. It's almost like an Illini paint scheme here, not the college, but more of the Illinois Central style, the brown and orange. This was a really attractive paint scheme, and it made sense when they received their 2 ST70M2s to follow up with that paint scheme. Unfortunately, that is a paint scheme that did not last long on these locomotives, as you know now. They're now covered under a coat of orange. But briefly, they did appear in this really attractive paint scheme. And the cool thing about both the Vermont Railway and the Providence and Worcester is both railroads are known for their smaller locomotives. Big, modern 6-axle locomotives are not that common on these lines. So to see these locomotives in these parts of the country on these type of railroads was pretty cool. And I got to see, at least the Vermont Railway, I got to see a little bit, and it was kind of a weird feeling to see something you'd normally seen in Illinois or in the Midwest on a Class 1 painted in an attractive short line scheme nestled in New England. But if you're not an operator of these 2 roads, maybe you've got connections to these 2 railroads, and this will give you an excuse to order these up. But 2 really attractive paint schemes. Now, here's the one that's got everybody talking, and that's the Canadian National versions. The Canadian National, of course, has these in their catalog, and the first locomotive that we've got at the top there, that's their standard paint scheme, their standard corporate paint scheme, very attractive. We see a lot of those here in Illinois because they bought out the IC. Really attractive paint scheme. And then you've got the next one underneath it. We talked a little bit about this yesterday too. And to the casual observer, you might think, man, what did they do with the paint scheme on this thing? It looks really weird. It almost looks like a modern McGuinness New Haven thing going on. It's really, the answer is simpler than that. The doors are basically all modular. They're all the same size. They produce these locomotives so that they're easy to maintain, easy to work on, and it's not uncommon for one of these locomotives to go into a shop and the doors get pulled off and set up against the wall, and they do what they need to do, and then they put the doors back on. And we've all seen pictures of, BNSF, especially for years, would have red and silver on a Heritage 1 or 2 locomotive, and it would look kind of odd to the casual observer. To those in the know, they know exactly what's going on. It's the same doors, just a different color or a different paint scheme, or in this case, they were swapped in order of where they should have gone. So it kind of makes up this rather interesting paint scheme. So if you're a CN modeler, and especially when this clears up with the pandemic and you go to shows, if you want to get people to ask you questions, this would be a great locomotive to put in your consist. Last but not least, as you all know too, Canadian National this past fall, they started talking about doing heritage units. And heritage units are extremely popular with the railfan community as well as the modelers, and for good reason too. It's kind of cool to see a heritage paint scheme that slowly went away when it was purchased by another railroad. And it's neat to see it come back on modern power. And here's the case here with the Grand Trunk. Very, very famous paint scheme. It was a basic paint scheme, but it was still eye-catching. And this locomotive has definitely made the rounds with rail fans. It's been caught throughout Canada and parts of the Midwest. I think it has gone as far as out west in California, because I do believe I've seen some pictures from some rail fans out there as well. So there you have it. You have got a gamut of SD70M-2s. It gives you a great example of anything from a Canadian Class 1 to a North American, or I should say United States Class 1, to some short lines too. And of course, those roads will usually connect with each other at some point. So would make for a great consist. I know personally the Grand Trunk one has been getting a lot of attention, and we hope you guys like it too. That was our main reason. We had a lot of requests for this specific heritage locomotive, and while we were at it, we figured we found some cool pictures of the Canadian National above it, and figured, hey, let's do that too, because people like that kind of stuff. So that is pretty much what we have on the SD70M-2. And again, that's going to be Genesis 2.0. So you're going to have a lot more features than you did with the previous run. There's no tooling or anything, but there's always refinements with each release. We'll try to refine things. And of course, in this case, we're going to have rubber MU hoses. And I think for me, the two biggest things as far as lighting features is going to be the lighted number boards and the ground lights. So those are really cool things for the prototype modeler. Really come in handy. And of course, if you go ahead and get the full house Tsunami decoder, there's a lot you can do with one of these locomotives. I'm looking through the comments now. If you guys have any questions on the SD70M-2s, feel free to post them up there. Let us know what you think of the Grand Trunk. The Grand Trunk is one that we get a lot of requests, and so hopefully you guys are happy with that. Let us know too. Give us a shout out. Who's going to pick up the Vermont Rail? Who's going to pick up the Providence and Worcester? Just let us know. See if you guys are interested in those smaller lines like that. All right. So the other model, that to me, to most people, that's considered a modern locomotive. I do realize that Norfolk Southern is not using them as much anymore or at all. But for the most part, as far as model railroading, that's considered a modern locomotive. Let's go back a few years and let's look at something really cool, kind of a almost a transitional passenger unit. We went from the E units and the F units, the fully cowled units, to something a little bit different in the late 60s. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bring that up. And these are the FP45s. Kind of a neat locomotive if you think about it. You know, some people would say, oh, it's kind of like a modernized E8. You've got a little bit different shape to it. It kind of has the same look and profile of, say, like an E unit, but it's going to be a little bit more modern. You know, this was the beginning of EMD starting to do some different things with their locomotives. One of which being that cab. That cab looks real familiar to a modern day railroad prototype modeler. That's kind of where it got the start. EMD had been working with a cab like this for a little bit. And then the other thing too is Dash 2 electronics were just in their infancy. They were just starting this. So these came along because specifically the Santa Fe saw that their passenger fleet was starting to age. A lot of those F units and E units were getting real high mileage, real high in the hours department, and it was getting more and more expensive to, do the maintenance on those locomotives. So they needed a replacement. And they went to EMD and they asked for a replacement. And long story short, through some various different exchanges and prototypes, if you will, they came up with the FP45 locomotive, 6-axle. The P, of course, for the passenger, but they could also be used in freight. They were used for quite a few years. Santa Fe used them right up through the 80s. They stored them a little bit, and then in 1995, when the BNSF became a railroad, they were pressed back into service again. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. We're going to start, though, with the Milwaukee Road. Really beautiful paint scheme. Very simple, but a very elegant paint scheme. Milwaukee Road, of course, used these for a little bit. They were slowly phased out after passenger operations were mainly taken over by Amtrak. Santa Fe, on the other hand, they kept theirs for quite a few years. These pretty much replaced a lot of the E8s, so like the El Capitan, the Super Chief, things of that nature. And there's a lot of cool pictures that we'll show here in a little bit of these going through like Galesburg, Illinois, on their way out west or coming into Chicago Station. Now, further down here, we have the Santa Fe Kodachrome. Now, the Kodachrome, of course, that's based on a failed merger between the Santa Fe and the Southern Pacific. In anticipation for that merger, which they were thinking was going to go through, Santa Fe painted a lot of their locomotives, including the FP45s, into the attractive red and yellow, and was affectionately known by most rail fans as the Kodachrome. And this locomotive definitely wears that well. Now, the Kodachrome that we've got here is based on mid-1980s. So you're looking at 85, 86 specifically. We also have, the FP45 is just such a great locomotive. You can't just stop at those. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, too. We are introducing these as the legendary liveries. These are, I don't even want to call these science fiction because they were very, very, very close to actually happening. The first one being the Southern Pacific Santa Fe. We all know that was a merger that didn't go through, but it came very, very, very close. And had that merger gone through, this is what the FP45 would have looked like. Not too different than the previous example, just with the SP added to its long hood and to its cigar band up on the front nose there. Could have happened. And for those folks that do model the Kodachrome era of Santa Fe or SP that want to change things up a little bit, we've offered this in the legendary liveries version of the Genesis locomotive. And then the next one, this one's really near and dear to my heart because I got to see a lot of these once I moved to Illinois, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. So again, I don't want to call this a what-if scheme because it is so close to it almost happened. Let's go back in time to 1995. Burlington Northern and Santa Fe, they merge. And imagine all of the trackage they now have. And now also imagine what kind of locomotives they've got. At this point, they've got some of the newer locomotives, SD70s, SD60s, but they've also got older stuff as well. Santa Fe still had GP39s, GP30s. BN was using a lot of SD40-2s. They had a lot of Morrison-Knudsen rebuilds, 39Ms. So they were just all over the place with power. They were literally starved for power. So they brought the FP45s out of retirement. They'd been sitting for a little bit. And they hastily got them back on the main line. Now, granted, most of them were painted in the blue and yellow. But if you look at the dates that we've got there, we're showing 2002. 2002 was also when the Heritage 2 just started to become popular. BNSF had decided that Heritage 2 paint scheme would be applied to North American wide cab locomotives. So since this is technically a cowl unit or a wide cab, it would receive the Heritage 2. And it almost happened. So close. Burlington Northern Santa Fe did indeed use FP45s. And I keep telling a lot of naysayers, just remember, this is a Class 1 railroad that took a GP9 with torpedo tubes and painted it in Heritage 1 in 1997, 1998. So stranger things have happened on the Class 1. But again, these are legendary liveries. They're based on actual historical events. And if one thing had gone one way, they more than likely would have ended up in these paint schemes. The last one that's in our legendary liveries is the Western Pacific. This is another one of those paint schemes that's iconic for the Western modelers. This was a paint scheme that was normally adorned on a E8 or an F unit, known for being its part on the Cal Zephyr. So iconic. It's definitely an iconic paint scheme. And we thought, this would be 1967 or so. Like the Santa Fe, a lot of their passenger F and E units would be getting a little bit long in the tooth. What is the logical progression of that? Well, logical progression would be the FP45. Now, did it really happen? No. But had it happened, this would have been the logical progression. And for the Western Pacific fans, definitely would be something neat to put in there to add to your collection. And Rick, I apologize. That might be some old New England kicking in about the Morrison-Knudsen. That's just a New England thing that I can't get rid of. I've been Midwesternized somewhat since I'm living out here, but I still have some bad habits from the East Coast. I saw another comment too. Let's see. Somebody had a comment about 1685. Oh, here we go. It's Brad. He's like, yeah, you keep mentioning the BNSF 1685. How about making a model of that thing? I think that's a great idea. I've actually brought that up. It's a locomotive that's near and dear to my heart because I did one in N scale many years ago, and actually had a really interesting encounter with somebody at a modeling contest with one of those. But yeah, it's actually a really interesting model, and it was just bizarre in 1998 to see a stock high hood Jeep 9 with torpedo tubes, no less. It's weird. In Heritage 1 paint scheme. It looked great. Especially to me, the Heritage 1 had a nice throwback to the Great Northern paint scheme. And I mean, that locomotive just wore it well. So So I wanted to show you some pictures too while I'm thinking of it. We'll kind of backtrack a little bit about the SD70. I don't know how many got to see it yesterday, but the SD70, there's one other thing that we've been working on. And as you know, I mean, for years you've had locomotives. You open up you take the shell off, and there's your decoder in there, and you've got wires for your speakers, wire for some of your LED lighting. And let's be honest, even in HS scale, it can be kind of overwhelming trying to keep all those wires together and not pinching anything. Sometimes, we're all thumbs, and it happens. We've been working on, or more Janik has been working on this project for a little bit. I'm going to show you a picture of what the interior of the SD70M-2 is going to look like. So for those folks out there that are used to electronics, specifically computers or even older radios and things of that nature, this is all surface mount technology, basically. There's no wires. This has all been designed so that everything connects without wires. This is going to make things a lot easier. So if you get a non-sound variant, that should help you, should you go a different route with your sound system, it'll be a little bit easier to deal with. I know, even like I said earlier, even in HO with all the wires that are being put, especially in the Genesis locomotives, it can be kind of hard to keep everything without getting a wire pinched and subsequently losing a light function or something of that nature. This is going to be pretty much how we start doing a lot of our locomotives now. This will make it a lot easier than just having a spaghetti bowl of wires and such. So there's something to look forward to with the release of the SD70M-2. You've got till the end of January to place your order, and they'll be in next year at this time. Let me show you some pictures. Tony Cook, who comes on board every now and then, he shared some pictures with me. I'm going to bring these up now. So here we go. This is what he sent us. I never get tired of that scheme. I really like it, and I'm from the East Coast. I mean, this should not be something I'm interested in, but it's really a cool paint scheme. This is San Bernardino, California, May 3rd, 1985. And my California friends out there are probably laughing. Sorry for butchering the name of your fine city. This is from the Kevin U. Daly collection, and man, just look at that, beautiful. The black, it looks like it just came out of the paint shop compared to the one that's behind it in the original paint scheme. Just beautiful. Let's see what else he's got for pictures here. So up next, we got a action shot. This was captured in Oro Grande. Hopefully I'm saying that right, guys. California, October 20th, 1985. This is a James Dougherty picture, and it's also, all these pictures I'm going to show you are from the Kevin U. Daly collection. We want to thank our folks over at White River Publications for letting us view these pictures. Really cool picture here leading this. It looks like it's hard for me to say from this angle, but it looks like a TOFC train, which I do know the Santa Fe did use these quite a bit for that throughout the 1980s. And the cool thing about this paint scheme is check out the number boards. Most railroads were black on white or white on black. They had red on white on red. Just a classy paint scheme. Here we go, same year, 1985. Just absolutely stunning. You can see how the yellow and what they call the Cub Scout paint scheme behind it would just kind of fade out to almost a custard yellow. But man, when these were new, that yellow is that so vibrant. And with the color combination here, of course, they called it Kodachrome, because at the time the Kodachrome Kodak slide film was in a package very similar. same colors. Here's an impressive picture. And again, TOFC. And with the exception of one, all in Kodachrome. That goes to show you how serious they were about this merger. They were really close to merging. It would have been interesting if they had merged, what the landscape would be like now. But this is a great picture. This is in 1986, Caliente, California. Yeah, just really cool. Especially check out the older 45-foot trailers like the Santa Fe on that F89F flat car right behind the last unit. All right, so I'll get to those in a minute. We're going to actually talk about the F45s now. So any questions that you might have on the FP45s that we're doing here? I'm just kind of looking through the comments now. Let's see. A lot of good comments on the Kodachrome. Kodachrome's a popular paint scheme, and that era of railroading is becoming somewhat common. Terry wants to know who calls it Cub Scout. Now, Terry, I'm not sure what part of the country you're from, and I know amongst rail fans, sometimes it's a regional thing. And sometimes it's just a bunch of buddies that come up with slang names, and sometimes they take off. Kodachrome is a rail fan term for the failed merger of the SPSF. Some folks that model the Santa Fe, some that don't, they call the paint scheme the war bonnet style blue and yellow that was common in the 80s. They'll call them Cub Scouts because they look similar to a Cub Scout logo or color scheme. I know a few guys here in the area. Myself, I've been guilty of calling Norfolk Southern a dark pony. They're just names that come up. So the Cub Scout thing, it might be regional. I've seen it used online. Just like if you go to the earlier Santa Fe paint scheme in the Midwest anyways, I've heard that called the Billboard paint scheme. And, out west, they might call it something different. But that's all I got for you, Terry. I've heard some people call it Cub Scout. It's not a real common name, but it is. Yeah, he says none I know call it that. Well, it's could be regional. It's one of those things where it's. I've heard. Brad says I've heard them called blue bonnets. I've heard that too. Out here, Brad, they always refer to the blue bonnets as the F units that were painted up for Amtrak. It's just kind of a regional thing, for me, Boston and Maine, the ones that we introduced last month, we called them blue dips because they literally look like they just dumped them in a paint vat of blue. So, all right. Any other questions on that? It's kind of interesting too to see what we call different paint schemes. I mean, it's almost its own thing. Okay, not seeing any. Steve's got a funny one. He says a few of my friends called the Kodachrome scheme the ketchup and mustard. Yeah, I could see that. All right. I'm just looking to see if there's any more questions. And Terry, to answer your question on the 2.0 features, biggest thing is the see-through steps. There's some lighting functions that we've not offered in the past. So you lit number boards. It's not just part of the headlight thing. It's actually separate now. And the thing that I think is really cool is the ground lights. Now, like I was saying, if you didn't catch me at the beginning of the broadcast, Terry, they're very subtle. They're not going to be bright. But in low light conditions, they're definitely noticeable. We tried to make that look as prototypical as possible. And it's just like in real life. I mean, if you're standing trackside next to an idling locomotive at dusk or night, you're not going to have these strong lights they're more of a subtle. It's just for safety reasons, and that's what we've tried to do here. If you want if you've not seen those ground lights, go over to our YouTube channel and just go to the homepage, and it's a featured video of the SD70 ACUs that we did. And there's a short video that goes over some of the 2.0 features. And one of them is the ground lights, and you can get an idea what those ground lights look like. All right. So now we're going to talk about some F45s also in the Genesis line. Let's see, there we go. All right. So as we can see here, you've got the Burlington Northern and the Wisconsin Central. These were straight up just freight locomotives. They weren't used for passenger. Burlington Northern used theirs for quite a few years. Now the fans out there that will probably know, I want to say it was the Burlington Northern that did have a little bit of issues with theirs because of the 6-axle trucks. I seem to remember reading that at some point. I've always been a strong Burlington Northern fan. This was one locomotive that, for what I was doing in N scale, just never was used, just because most of my Burlington Northern stuff was smaller 4-axle. But nevertheless, we've got this one offered in the Cascade Green, the iconic Cascade Green. And then, of course, the Wisconsin Central, which is just a great paint scheme. Really, really neat railroad. I had the opportunity to railfan many, many years ago. Great railroad. And so if you are modeling that part of the country, you're probably going to want to pick one of these up. Now, the interesting thing about the Burlington Northerns is they were originally, if you weren't here for this, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. These were originally part of a Great Northern order. Great Northern ordered these. These are in Great Northern specs. But by the time they actually came onto the property, the Great Northern was no longer. It was now the Burlington Northern. It was part of the Burlington Northern group. And so they were painted in the BN Cascade Green as seen here. And then the Wisconsin Central versions, they showed up in the mid-90s. Unfortunately, they weren't there when I was railfanning. I was there in the early 90s. But in 95, they got these from the Santa Fe. And I never got the opportunity to shoot any of these, but I had some friends that lived in that area, and they got some really cool pictures of these. And I mean, it's the Wisconsin Central. It's a cool railroad. Unfortunately, that paint scheme didn't last too long before they were purchased. So again, these are all Genesis locomotives. They're going to have the Genesis features that you're accustomed to. Like with all of our locomotives, we have gone ahead and refined some things. They're going to have LED lights now. They didn't have LED lights when we introduced them a few years ago. They're going to have the rubber MU hoses. They're going to have usually the painting and the printing of the painting gets better with time. The technology just keeps getting better and better and better. So if any of those locomotives interest you, please go talk to your dealer. Let them know that you want to order these. You have till the end of January to do this. And we'll talk about them too a little bit throughout the month. But today we really wanted to highlight those and talk about those. So I'm looking through the comments if there are any questions about the F45s. Don't see anything that's popping up right about now. So I do have Randall's got an interesting question. I think it's a question for the group, actually. I'm going to put it up here. Oops, that's not the one. Sorry, Randall. Here we go. Randall's got a question. This is a group question. This is for everybody. I got a question for you guys. What blue box era locomotives would you like to see come back as either a ready to roll or a Genesis locomotive? That's a great question. And it's a great thing to think about, because there are a lot of, I always like the old PAs that Athens had. It was just a neat locomotive. Now, definitely wouldn't hold up today's standards, but imagine it in Genesis. Imagine, any number of locomotives from your past done up as a Genesis or ready to run. And so we do have an email now. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's go take a walk real quick. I'm going to share my screen. And let's see. Let's go to the Athens. And so what you want to do, if you say you're in the train room, you're having fond memories of something that you'd really like to see as a Genesis locomotive, or maybe it's something we've never even offered before. It's real simple to get a suggestion into us. I've made the screen bigger, so hopefully you guys can see this. But let's see. Go to the home page. Go over here to the contact. Contact Athens, okay? Right here. Athens product suggestions at athens.com. That's all you need to do. Put that in there because we do actually read those emails. We don't always respond to them, but we do read those emails. And if we start seeing more requests for a certain locomotive or a certain paint scheme on a locomotive we currently have, they basically get put into a network, if you will, so that we know what to produce the next time around. So we do listen to you guys, and use that email. That's your best way of getting a product suggestion to us. I love looking at our Facebook page and seeing all the comments of, hey, can you guys do this? Can you guys do that? And it's great. We do appreciate it, but unfortunately that gets lost. If you go to the Athens product suggestions at athens.com email and put that in there, we'll actually see it. And like I said, now we won't always respond to your inquiry or your request, but we are reading those and we are taking notes, because we obviously want to produce something that most modelers want. We don't want to just produce something only one or two modelers want. Now, going back here, I'm going to show a few pictures too of some more full-scale prototype F45s that Tony Cook shared with us. All right, there we are. What we have here is, this was in Seattle, Washington, July 1972, and in that Cascade green. And you can see up here the strobe light that was popular on the BN in that era. And I'm not as familiar with this particular prototype as I am some of the BN stuff, but BN had a really interesting strobe back then. BN guys will know it's not your typical strobe. It's not even. It's technically, I don't think it's even a strobe. It's a series of bulbs that would flash in a pattern, like a clockwise pattern. And I know this because I've tried to simulate this in N scale, and it's not easy. It can be done, but it's not easy. Let's see. Slightly different picture in Denver. It's looking like it's getting a little bit of use there. It's a little bit darker, a little bit grittier. This is in April 1973. Well, wait a minute. This isn't an F45. This isn't even Cascade Green. Wonder what's up with that. Well, let me look at my notes here. That's because now that we've talked about the Genesis stuff, it's time to talk about what's going to be coming into stock soon. So Janik, as you know, super busy, and he shared this picture with me a couple of days ago. Now, remember, I told you yesterday, you Conrail guys are going to be happy. This is the SD80 Mac, the Genesis that we talked about last year, and they are virtually here. They should be here in stock, I would say 2 weeks. So if you pre-ordered one of these, contact your dealer. You'll be seeing them soon. If you did not pre-order one of these and you've changed your mind and you would like an SD80 Mac, whether it be in the demonstrator or the Conrail as seen here, contact your dealer. We have a few left that have not been pre-sold, and you could get a chance to order one of these. But I'm going to go ahead and make that bigger again so you guys can just enjoy the Conrail-ness of this picture. Just a stunning model. And again, Genesis. Let's see if Janik sent me any other pictures. Here we go. Nice overhead shot. And like I said, these should be in stock, I'd say, in about a week or so. We're saying on our website they're going to be mid-January. If you pre-ordered these, your dealer will be giving you a call here shortly. Really cool. And if you ever had the chance or the opportunity to see one of these in up close and personal, it was a very impressive locomotive. So there we go. That's going to be coming into stock here soon. You're going to want to look that up. And also for the N-scale guys out there, I want to see if yeah, I do. I'm just going to share my screen so you N-scale guys know what's coming up. I don't want to forget the N-scale guys because, we're all in this together. Let me share a screen because for our N-scale guys, we've got something that's coming into stock soon as well. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, so due here in the next couple of weeks is the Bulkhead Flats. These are the very common throughout the lumber industry, and these make great freight cars, whether you're in a modular club, say N-Track, T-Track, Fremo N, or if you've got a home layout, or even if you're like me and you've got a small N-scale switching layout, maybe you've got a lumberyard facility. These are great for that, and we're also offering them, not only in just singles as you see here, we're also offering them in sets of 3. So it's really easy to build up a train. I'm really impressed with the detail on these. Even though they're N-scale, they still have a lot of great detail. Body-mounted couplers, metal wheel sets. They just perform really well. And I can say from experience, switching with these in N-scale is a pure pleasure. They go over code 55 turnouts without any issues whatsoever. So those will be here in about 2 weeks. So HO scale guys that are into the modern or semi-modern stuff, you got about 2 weeks. And guys that are in N scale, that's going to be coming here soon. So if you need to get some nice 70s, 80s, even into the modern time bulkhead flat cars, those will be in here real soon. Let's see. Now, I told you too, I was going to tell you guys what we have in stock right now. I know sometimes it's hard because we're talking sometimes a year in advance. But for the HO scale guys, these just came in. They came in, I think, just before Christmas. Let me see. All right. So we got the 20,000 gallon GS tank cars are in stock. And again, just like in the N scale, These are available as singles and as a pack of 3. Now, these are Genesis models. I'm going to go ahead and I'll select this one. These are Genesis, so that all of that brake detail and piping, all of that's going to be there. These are perfect for the guy that's got the home layout, that likes to do operations. These hold up really well in photography. If you've got a home-based layout and you're looking for a nice, nicely detailed scale car, this is the car that you're going to want to look at. These are available now. If you pre-ordered these, your dealer will probably be calling you. If you did not and you'd still like to get these, we have a pretty good selection right now, although some roads are starting to thin out. You can call your dealer and they will set you up with these. Likewise, we have these in N scale as well. The N scale versions are in stock. The N scale versions, obviously, they're not going to be as detailed as the HO ones, just because of pure physics, but they still hold up really well, and they do great on any type of home layout, club layout, modular type setup. They do great on all of those. So if you guys are looking for tank cars in HO or N, contact your dealer today. These are great for everything from your unit trains all the way down to your industrial switching. So there you have it. We had a lot of stuff to talk about today. I'm going to get some rail fanning up, and while I'm doing that, get your questions ready. We got time for a few questions and comments. And I see as I'm doing things, Kevin wants to know, how are the Athens shirts coming along? Well, the good news is the hard part's done, which was doing all the artwork. In fact, you can't tell, but I'm wearing my CP one underneath here. Once the holidays are over and Horizon Hobby in general catches up with all of the happenings that we had during the holiday season, we can start getting those in there. Probably look for those, I'd say late winter, early spring, you'll start seeing them. And thanks for bringing that up. And we want to do more shirts throughout the year. If you got ideas of what kind of shirts you would like to see to wear at the train shows when we start going back to train shows again, let us know. All right. So today we're going to Ashland, Virginia. And I'm going to increase our screen size here. There we go. And well, it's still really festive looking there too. I shouldn't say funny. The peculiar thing about this location is the last few weeks, there have been a lot of cars that get hung up on these tracks. I've seen one car get hit. Fortunately, the occupants of the vehicle were able to, escape injury. But nonetheless, I've seen a lot of cars make that turn right there too sharp, and they end up on the tracks. So not that we want to see that tonight, but it is a cool location and really festive looking. So yeah, that is a neat clock near the tracks. I mean, if anything, this kind of looks like a model railroad, just the way it's all set up. It gives you some great ideas. All right, we got some great questions coming in. Eric, looks like you got a question for us. Wants to know, when are the rest of the CP Armed Forces come out to pre-order? That's a great question, Eric. So we concentrated on what we had this time, which was the Naval and the Army version. There are more versions out there, of course, but what we wanted to do is we wanted to give you a break. They're Genesis locomotives, so they are going to be priced accordingly. And we know that not everybody has the funds to buy everything right up front. We kind of wanted to break it up for you, basically. That keeps us on our good side with our significant others more than anything. But we will be doing those. I don't have a date as to when we're going to be doing those, but yes, we will be doing those. I would say probably within a year or so. Eric, you've got a comment/question. When are the WSOR modelers going to get some love? Something I can take to Janik. It's definitely something I can take to Janik. I know it's been a while. And by the way, use that email that I showed you guys. Go ahead and put that in there because we do track that stuff. Let's see. Richie, there's a question near and dear to my heart. Any new announcement for the Amherst train show? I know that it is canceled. Yeah, that is probably my favorite show of all time just because that's my neck of the woods. That was the first big train show I ever went to. Yeah, they did indeed cancel. It's just the nature of everything that's going on. Massachusetts, of course, didn't want to take that risk with that many people. And as you know, that show brings in people from all over the country and outside the country. I haven't heard. There was talk of doing a virtual train show, which Athens would love to be a part of, but I have not heard any updates. Yeah, I'm dearly, dearly going to miss that show. Even before I worked for Athens, I'd go there just about every year. Terry's got a question. Terry wants to know anything in southern seaboard and Atlantic coastline. Not right now. They are roads that we've looked at, and off the top of my head right now, I can't think of anything that would fit that we're going to be coming out with right away, but do stay tuned. Those are roads that have come up in conversations in the past. We do know that we've got a good share of southern modelers out there. Let me see what else we've got. Yes, Keenan, Train Fest in Milwaukee is nice. It's very nice. And so far, knock on wood, they are planning on going through with the 2022 show. I really hope so. Nothing like getting a butter burger. And yeah, it's just Milwaukee's a great town. Let's see. Got some great requests. I'm just trying to figure out which ones to go for. I'm going to check out what David's saying. David says we need more on deck in the loco department rolling stock as well. Fair question. As far as like the freight cars and stuff, I'd have to talk to the guys and see. Now, one of the biggest problems we have with undecorated locomotives, it's twofold. Number one, believe it or not, it's actually can be more expensive to do an undecorated locomotive than painted. And you're probably thinking, well, that makes 0 sense, James, because you're just putting it through a spray booth and putting some stuff on it and you're done. And that was true in the old days with the old blue box, and you only had like 2 or 3 different pieces. That may have been true, but when you look at a Genesis locomotive and you see how many pieces that has, or even a ready to roll sometimes has a lot of additional parts. Just the process that is done at the factory of how they're assembled, how they're painted and everything, the undecks turn out to be more expensive. The other problem too is we have to have the factory do extra steps with those undecorateds. So take, for example, a Jeep 9. Let's say you've got an undecorated Jeep 9. When we do a decorated sample, we'll say Santa Fe. That Santa Fe GP9 is going to come in a specific paint scheme for a specific era. And likewise, it's going to have specific details for that era. So a Santa Fe Jeep 9 is going to look completely different than, say, a Boston to Maine Jeep 9. Now, when you go to the undecorated phase, we don't know what details we're going to put in with that GP9. Now we're talking Genesis ready to roll, either of those two options. So in the past, we have done locomotives and undecorated, and there's just sprues, like remember the plastic car models we used to build when we were younger? Just sprues of detail parts, most of which you might not use. But since we're putting them in the box, we have to charge for them. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin too is, and I'm right there with you. I do a lot of custom painting myself. I really enjoy firing up the airbrush and doing my own thing. But unfortunately, more and more that's becoming not as common as it used to be. More folks are happy with what's coming out of the box from the factory, because it leaves them more time to either weather the locomotive or just work on their layout in general. So unfortunately, when we have done undecorated locomotives in the past, we're usually left with a large percentage left over. So with the locomotives, we've kind of shied away from the undecorateds, and I know for the guys at Custom Paint, that's a jagged pill to swallow. But that's the reason why you don't see it as much anymore as you used to. Now, maybe in the roundhouse we could do something like that, but that's the answer for you. But as far as the rolling stock, I think it's something maybe we can take a look at, and we'll have to get back to you on that. Let's see. A lot of good questions here. Zach, what? How about fake Boston, Maine SD70M-2s? Well, I mean, if you really want to debate it, technically, it's already happened. Pan Am Southern. They're just not painted blue. They don't have McGinnis logo, but something to think about. We got something coming down the line here. Unfortunately, since it's Virginia, it's already dark there, so we can't tell what it is. Yep, it is a train. I mean, just no idea what kind it is, but hopefully we get some light on there. Keenan, I see your comment. More Pan Am cars. Yeah, we're going to have to do that because pretty soon Pan Am's going to be a fallen flag. Not sure where. I haven't really kept up with it lately, but I know there's some musings between CSX, Norfolk Southern, and Pan Am. Let's see. Here's a good one. Shane, have you guys considered making locos with no road numbers, and the modelers can easily make them any number they want? Yeah, we've actually considered that. We haven't had a lot of feedback on it, so we've considered it, and that's as far as it's gotten. But if you think, and that goes for anybody out there, if you guys want to see something like that, and that goes for freight cars too, let us know. Let us know in our comment email. And unfortunately, the angle and the light is not the best, but it gives us, at least it gets us a train. The last few weeks, we weren't really getting a lot of action on a Tuesday. Getting a lot of requests for chassis, Seaboard, CSX. That's good to know. Chassis guys are pretty hardcore. They like the chassis. I mean, who wouldn't like that? I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that doesn't like the chassis scheme, but it's a pretty cool scheme if you ask me. Let's see. Brad says about this train, it's literally garbage. Yep. True assessment. Norman says, I thought Athens produced unnumbered tank train cars and ATSF B units years ago. Yeah, I think you're right. That was a while ago. And maybe based on how those did is why we haven't done those. I'm not sure. But Stephen, any plans for an SW1001? So we do know that there is a lot of demand right now for smaller switchers. We do have some stuff. It's going to require some refinement to get it up to our modeling standards and your modeling standards. But do know that we do see your comments on that. We do know there's a demand. I can't say about the SW1001, but I can say on switchers in general, we're looking into it, and we're hoping to keep you guys posted on that. In fact, you should be able to see something here this year. Oh, sorry, Anthony. James won't answer the question. It's probably because I didn't see it, because it's going real quick. So I apologize. Try to post that again. If I see it, Anthony, I'll try to answer it for you. Let's see. Yeah, Christian, you're right. SW1001s are good for short lines. They're good for, there's a lot of guys, especially in HO. We're seeing a lot of guys doing small switching layouts, something like what I want to do behind me. And that's why we're getting a lot of demand for that kind of locomotive. The Tropicana Cars. Okay. I thought I saw something about the Tropicana Cars, and I apologize. It went by too quick. So are you asking if we're going to do the Tropicana Cars? Okay, there we go. Will you guys reissue? Yeah, Sparky, it's true. It moves quick. I'm old, and I don't move as quick as the comments. Let's see. So regarding the Tropicana cars, I haven't heard anything about them reissuing those. It has not come up lately. If it's one of those things where we see a lot of demand for it, we would possibly look into it. One of the things with manufacturing, not all the time, but sometimes we'll run things. And as you know, molds can tend to wear out, and the finished product isn't as up to our standards as we'd like, and that requires time and money. So there are some things that we can't reissue right away. I don't know why we haven't done the Tropicana cars. It's something I can ask Janik and see. Hugo wants to know, is the GP60M tooling still usable, or is the mold gone like the GP40Xs? Based on my memory, I don't think it's gone, but I think it needs refinement. I think it needs to, just like anything, it's been a while, and it's going to need some refinement. A lot more good comments coming in for the switchers. That is definitely, one of the questions I have for you guys as a group. How many of you out there are building, maybe you're in an apartment, maybe you're in a small house. How many of you guys out there that are watching the live stream are building smaller switching type layouts? Maybe they're only 6 feet, 7 feet long, and they serve one or two customers. I'm seeing a lot of guys when we were going to train shows, I've seen a lot of guys doing that. Let me know in the comments. How many of you guys are thinking about doing a switching layout, whether you take it to a show or just, in your own home? Terry, you're in a club layout. You're very lucky. I had a great club in New England, and we had a great, hey, look at this. Wow. 2 in 1, one broadcast. That we'll have to come back here again, guys. This is a nice spot. Kevin's reporting he's got a switching layout. Nice to know. Thomas has got a vote. He says the smaller switching layouts are great. Yeah, I got to agree. I mean, I don't have a lot of room. Ironically, living in the Midwest, you'd think I'd have, a huge basement where I could build a beautiful big layout. But, the other thing about a small switching layout is you don't have to, put as much time into it. It's almost like bite-sized modeling. You can work on different things, and before you know it, you've got a nice layout that presents really well. Whereas with a big layout, you're constantly building, and it takes years and years to get something going on. David just chimed in. He's got a shelf layout. It's good to know. And, honestly, one of the biggest reasons why I don't have a big layout in either N or HO is because I hate cleaning track. I hate cleaning track. I had the small city job for years, and I used to hate going to a show, and the first thing after we got everything all set up was to clean the track. I hated it. Here's a good question from Brad. Did you guys look at doing later phase ES44 ACs and ET44 ACs? They have been done before by others, but frankly, I think you guys could do better. Well, Brad, thank you for that comment. That's very kind. That's something that we can probably look into. That's the beauty of the modern locomotives. They're somewhat modular. They can be changed and updated as needed. And so that's something that we could probably look into. We have had some requests for ET44s. So most definitely a great comment and question. So yeah, it looks like we've got some great guys talking about some great modeling ideas out there. Thomas, you had my attention with Ford. I'll have to see what you're doing. So we'll take one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap things up for today. Want to once again thank you all for coming in. Appreciate you guys talking with me, and it makes the pandemic a little bit easier when you can actually talk to fellow modelers and talk about stuff. Sparky, this is a loaded question. James, what is your favorite locomotive type of all time? So that means I got to cross over diesel and steam, and that's hard. It's almost like saying who's your favorite child? Man, all right, I'm going to make it somewhat easier for us. Steam locomotive, GS4. And specifically, and I know some guys are going to throw their soda can at me for saying this, I like the American Freedom Train paint scheme. Love it. GS4 and the AFT scheme with all those coaches, I like it. Really like it. I like bicentennial paint schemes anyways, but the GS4 just had beautiful lines. It's just a gorgeous steam locomotive. Close second for me would be a heavy Burke. As far as diesel locomotives, man, it's a toss-up. To me, the quintessential CB&Q locomotive, as far as diesels, was the GP30 and the Chinese Red. That was pretty good. But going back to my roots, I'm going to have to say probably the GP9, specifically Boston and Maine. Probably one of the cruddiest paint schemes you could think of on a GP9. I'm not talking about the as-delivered McGinnis. I'm talking about just the blue dips like we introduced last month. But that's because I remember them. I remember watching them switch out in Concord. So probably the GP9. It's pretty a basic locomotive, but it gets the job done. We're still seeing them work out here. Okay. Let's see. Kevin, yeah, you're right. But remember, the Boston and Maine had a version of the Burke. They called them Mountains, if I remember right. Eric says, no more Boston and Maine. Oh, you're killing me. No, that's okay. We're not gonna concentrate on just Boston and Maine. We're gonna be doing this next year. We're gonna be doing all kinds of stuff. We're gonna be doing stuff from the South, some Canadian stuff, and I'd like to see more Midwest stuff. So I'm sure we're gonna see some more Midwest stuff too. So definitely. David says, Rock Island said, hold my beer and watch this, basically. Yeah. Rock Island was the Boston and Maine of the Midwest. I tend to agree. It's kind of like the Cubs and the Red Sox were so much alike for years. All right. Well, once again, thanks to everybody for coming on board. We had a great night. It was great showing you all the new stuff that we're coming out with at Athens. The stuff that we talked about earlier, if you're looking for those tank cars for your layout, do talk to your dealer. And if you didn't pre-order those, you still have a chance to get those. We do have a few left in stock. Couple of things. During once we start the new year, I want you guys to be thinking about some of the contests that we're going to be doing. One of the contests that we're going to start the new year with is going to be weathering. Now, the rules are pretty simple, loosely defined. It's going to be a prime for grime Athens freight car. And basically, I want to see you guys do your weathering techniques. I want you to fool myself and Janik and the other Athens guys into taking a picture of this prime for grime freight car that you've weathered. Basically, I want you to trick us. Make that thing look like, when I look at your freight car, I want to look at it and think I need a tetanus shot if I walk by that thing. So that's our first contest of the year. Be looking about that. Details will be coming up shortly in the next few weeks. And also, for product suggestions, remember that email. We want to hear what you guys want. We want to make stuff that you guys are interested in. So by all means. That is all I've got for today. We will be back next Tuesday at the same time, same channel. And we'll be talking about some cabooses in the Genesis line. Santa Fe guys, you'll be happy to hear about that. We've also got some cool freight cars that we're going to be working on. And maybe at the first of the year, there'll actually be track behind me on this thing. So there we go. So guys, get your weathering paints and brushes and everything ready. We'll be coming up with details on that contest. Again, I will see you all next Tuesday at 3:30. Until then, have a great new year. Celebrate safely. Stay healthy. And high greens, everybody.